I opened my eyes, and everything slid into focus. She was dead. I was hurt. My crime, what I had done, was like a hungry pit behind me. I had to run, get as far away from it as possible. The world was out of joint. I was hallucinating. I had to get away.
Max, the route's clear.
Allow me to present Max Payne.
Max.
Max, dearest of all my friends.
Payne?
It's your
You're in the...
Max, 911.
Sorry, I left you.
Run! Run!
Oh, Max. Always bringing the pain to the max. Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. Welcome. What we're doing today is we're talking about, I guess, my take on Max Payne as a series. Personally, I love it. I picked it up when I was younger, and I really don't know when. I can't place a time to it. I remember I got that, and I got True Crime. So somewhere maybe around 2003-ish. And I did not know what I was going to get myself into. But I'm glad I did get into it, because it is single-handedly one of the most poetic, one of the most fun games to play, and the story is really driven, and the art style to it. The first two games have a graphic novel art style, which I admire. I admire the art style so much, and we'll get into what I think, why 3 doesn't have it. But starting off with the first game, I mean, they hit you right away, as soon as you start the game up. It, like, you have the aerial view, you go to your house, and, well, after the cutscene, you're in your house, and he's like, "Oh, honey, I'm home," and turns out his wife and child are murdered, and you're finding out why. Max is finding out why his family was taken from him, and along the way you meet some crazy characters. My personal favorites are, yeah, you're gonna judge me for it, but I love Vinny and I love Vlad, because they bring such a different, it's like they're from a different world. Some of the other characters are pretty fun too. Well, a lot of the characters are. They're well written for the style of the game it is. It's like a really noir type of title. Like, the take on it is just so, it's so cinematic, if that makes sense. Like, even the gameplay, they have the slow motion and, different choreographed moves for what you're doing. It's almost like the John Woo movies. It's so stylistically done that when I first started playing it, I was hooked. I think I made a point. I didn't have a memory card, so back then you had to just leave it running to get what you wanted to get done. And I remember I would get yelled at to shut it off, right? So I would literally restart, and it got to the point where I'm like, look, I'm just gonna sneak it, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. If you guys haven't played it, it's a lot of fun. All 3 games, and yeah, I know the first 2 are drastically different from 3. They're not, but they are. The change in scenery, the change in pacing, the change in the way the story's formatted. Like, we get to 1 and 2, you get that noir type of graphic novel where it's like comic strips, and I haven't had a game that has conveyed that well, other than, I would say, Comic Zone. Comic Zone did that well, because you literally get thrown into your own comic. But that's more of like a, I don't know, a suited, it's supposed to be like that. This is, imagine if you're really going through this, it's like his psyche is working like this, his mind is working like this. Like each thing that he does, he speaks poetically. Even though you see him in the cutscenes and whatnot, he's kind of like sometimes frantic, most times angry, somber. It's like his mind works very poetically, and the way that everything strings together, like the quotes from that game are some of my favorite quotes. Like I love when they would tie together some of the lines, like the American Dream speech that he does at the end of 2. Well, the middle and the end. So this is the American Dream, and the way that the quotes get tangled in with where you're at, like it's not just thrown in there. They're stylistically placed, and the way that they're placed in, you don't miss a step. Like there are some quotes and some things that it feels like it's forced or you missed a step in between, but no. Like even when you literally, there's a drug going around called Valkyr in the game, and part of Max's thing is he wants to find out more about it, because obviously the ones that are behind Valkyr are the ones that had to do with the murder of his baby and his wife. So he goes around and he's finding this information. Well, I believe at one point he gets infected with it, and he, mind you, this is just going off memory, I've played this game that much, so he gets like amped up on Valkyr, and he has this crazy fever dream where he's reliving certain moments over and over and over and over again. And the way that they tie in some of the things, like he says it's like I'm in a graphic novel, and the pacing on it still does not feel like there's a step missed. It still doesn't feel like it's out of place, like, oh, breaking the fourth wall, it's stupid. It works so well with the way that it's written, with the way that it's stylized. And the second one is I felt like I'm in a video game. The certain weapon wheels and different types of ammo were floating above me, and it doesn't feel like it's out of place, because the way he's speaking is that he doesn't feel in control. So he feels like in that point in time, in one sense he's feeling like his life is being written for him, and then in the other sense he feels like he's not in control. But that's because he's on Valkyr. It's written so well that it doesn't miss a step, and I love that so much. Max is a character he has got mental fortitude. He's like he's an average guy, right? He's an average guy, and that makes him so much more relatable. Then it's like everything that could happen, that could have potential to happen, that's horrible, seems to land in his lap no matter where he's at. Okay, New York, New Jersey, Brazil. Yeah, that's 3. 3 is Brazil. And we'll get to that here in a minute. So he finds out that Valkyr, while working for the Puccinello family, I think it's called, and he goes to meet up with his partner. His partner gets killed, and he gets framed for it. So the entire time he's trying to fight for his innocence, while not realizing that the ones that had framed him were the ones that were behind the whole event, behind everything. And then you get introduced to Max's, well, I guess current and future love interest that thinks that he had to do with her sister's death, and she's a hired assassin. Like Mona, that's Mona. Okay, Mona thinks that Max has something to do with his sister's death, and she's an assassin, so she's after him. She got the whole NYPD after him. I almost said LAPD just because, I don't know why. So he's got to fight against his own, like, innocence, as well as fighting against, you know, Mona, but not doing anything to hurt her, because he wants to prove his innocence with her and for Natasha, her sister. So he goes, you infiltrate so much, you do so much damage. It's unreal. There's apartment buildings being blown up, city blocks being shot up, subways getting shut down because of like the mafia rolling through and you're fighting them off. It is so insane. It's so much fun. And not because it's like mindless, because you want to resolve the story for Matt. You want a good ending for him, because you by the time you're at the end of the game, you've done so much and you've seen so much. You've peered just this little bit that's supposed to be like the course of, I think, a day or two, a couple days maybe. You peer so much into it that you want to see that good ending for him. And that's just one. Two, it gets so much hairier. I don't want to spoil the games, because I mean there's a whole thing with, you know, people dying, and I'd rather you guys play. I already did bad by spoiling parts of one, but there's so much more than what I'm telling you. So let's just get into this. Let's get into the pacing of 3. Okay, so the pacing of 3, at first I was not a fan. I'll be honest. When 3 first hit the market, I bought it, I played it, and I just thought, where is the style that was there? And what you have to understand is, since then, Max has aged, so he's changed. The way he thinks has changed. What he's doing for what has changed. So that's why instead of getting like the broken down graphic novel type, you get kind of like this haze, because he spent a lot of time drinking in dive bars and doing side work for whoever, and he gets recruited to go to Brazil to be part of a not a private military, like a bodyguard type thing. So his boss gets kidnapped, and that ropes you into this whole thing, this whole misadventure that happens in Brazil, which ends up the same as it does in Jersey and New York. But in 3, you finally get what you're looking for. I don't want to spoil it. So I think as I played more of 3, I really enjoyed the pacing of it, because it like I said, it peers you into his mind. It's just a different point in time. It doesn't take place, like 1 and 2 are closely put together. They're supposed to be, I think, a week apart or a few days, and so that's fine. That's fine, because that's still compacted into that little thing. So then you move years into the future, where now Mona is well, you'll find out. Play the game. And he's still thinking about his wife, he's still thinking about his baby, and it's just eating him up. I mean, it's eating the man alive. So he just begins this like ravage of alcoholism. So what you get in the cutscenes is like these bright, swings of light in different forms. You get swings of light that shine in, and it's weird to explain. I'm gonna put a clip here to understand, because it's like a haze of light, and it almost feels like, when you've had a little bit too much, and it starts feeling like everything's twirling around you. That's kind of what it reminds me of, but it's more quicker, because the pacing of it is quicker. The pacing of 3, for the sake of all things, is a lot quicker. It's a lot more on the draw. So I do enjoy that, because it's kind of like it's his now or never. It's either he does this or he runs out of time, and XYZ happens. Again, don't want to spoil it. I think as a whole, as a series, I'd love to see it remade. I would love to see a reboot of it. I guess I didn't know this until I started wanting to make this video, because I haven't kept up on a lot of things. I've lost time to work or whatever. I guess there was talks of a remake coming, and that makes me excited, because seeing how they can handle their business, I guess they're going to Rockstar, and stuff like Remedy doing stuff with Alan Wake and all that, which there will be a video on that coming soon. I don't know when. I still have to edit this. Anyway, so seeing how they handled Alan Wake, and then having that deal with Rockstar again. I mean, Rockstar did great with the storytelling of, if you're like, oh, well, they just have Grand Theft Auto. Well, think of Red Dead Redemption. That had an amazing story, an amazing pace. So I think it can be done, and I think it'd be done faithfully. And I guess they want to rope 1 and 2 together, which makes sense, because, I mean, they're literally like days apart, and you could just transition that smoothly, because it, yeah. Anywho, if they do that, I would love to see them have a take on 3. Well, not a take, I guess just a remake of 3. Just polish it up or release it for current gen, because I think it's still just available on 360 and PS3. Come on, give us some fan service. One thing at a time now. I'm being too selfish. One thing at a time. Let's get 1 and 2, then we'll worry about whatever. But if they are making 1 and 2, that's great. That's awesome, because then that's gonna open it back up. It's gonna open that world back up. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna be super hyped, because I know when I first played it, when that first piano chord, which if you notice, that's what's the background music for this. Since that first piano chord, hearing that song, it immediately draws you in. So I've talked on this quite a bit. I'm gonna cut the video here, because I'm gonna keep going if I don't. I just wanted to give you my thoughts on it. I wanted to give you my thoughts on this series. I love it. Oh yeah, real quick, the movie. I'm one of those few people that like it. At least I did when it came out. And I don't know why. It might be because I like the series. But I read a lot of people who didn't like it. It got like negative reviews, and I don't know. I enjoyed it. I feel like it was mostly faithful, albeit taking certain amenities. They're gonna change things. It's a movie adaptation. But speaking of, I guess there's another movie, a reboot to the movie. So it won't be a sequel. It won't be a sequel to the Mark Wahlberg film. It'll be its own thing. So that'll be cool too. So it looks like the future's pretty bright for Max. It looks like he's gonna make a grand comeback. And if there's anyone that I want to see make a grand comeback, it's Max Payne. He deserves it. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all. 1K gang, let's go.
They were all dead. The final gunshot was an exclamation mark to everything that had led to this point. I released my finger from the trigger. And then it was all over. The storm seemed to lose its frenzy. The ragged clouds gave way to the stars above.
Max Payne, this is Deputy Chief Jim Bravura from the NYPD. We've got the building surrounded. Throw down your weapons and lie down with your hands behind your head.
A bit closer to heaven.